The first thing Marianne Whitaker said when I stepped into her kitchen, half frozen and covered in snow, was, "You look like a man who ignored 3 weather alerts and one direct warning from a woman old enough to know better." The second thing she said, 4 hours later, with her hand against my chest and her lipstick faintly smudged, was, "Don't tell my daughter what happened between us tonight." That was when I knew the storm outside wasn't the only thing that had trapped me. My name is Miles Barrett. I was 34 then, old enough to know when a road was dangerous, young enough to think my truck and stubbornness made me immune to consequences. I owned a small custom woodworking shop outside Burlington, Vermont, mostly cabinets, built-ins, old furniture repairs for people who still believed walnut and patience were worth paying for. Marianne had hired me to restore a cedar hope chest that had belonged to her mother. It had been sitting in her lake house for years, scarred on top, one hinge broken, the whole thing smelling faintly of lavender and thyme. She was also my ex-girlfriend's mother. That part mattered. Her daughter Jenna and I had ended badly 18 months earlier. Not screaming in the driveway badly. Worse in a way. Quietly, politely. Like two people folding a map and pretending neither one had gotten lost. She wanted a life in Chicago with glass towers and gallery openings and a man who didn't come home smelling like sawdust. I wanted roots, a dog, maybe a porch. We were not villains to each other. Just wrong. But Marianne had never treated me like collateral damage. Even after the breakup, she still sent Christmas cards with actual handwriting. She still referred customers to my shop. She still called me Miles, dear, in that smooth, amused voice of hers, like she knew exactly when I was about to make a fool of myself and had decided to let me learn the lesson personally. She was 52, though she carried it like a secret nobody had permission to use against her. Silver threaded through her dark hair at the temples. She wore soft sweaters and sharp boots, read legal thrillers, taught art history part-time, and had a way of looking at people that made them stand a little straighter. I had always noticed her. There. I said it. Not in some cheap, lurking way. Not while I was with Jenna, but Marianne was the kind of woman a man noticed, even when he was trying very hard to be decent. She laughed from the chest, not the throat. She listened like every sentence deserved a frame around it. And whenever she touched your arm to make a point, the whole room seemed to pause politely. The storm had started earlier than predicted. By noon, the sky over Lake Champlain had turned the color of wet steel. By 2, the interstate was crawling. By 4, I was on the narrow road to Marianne's lake house with the restored cedar chest strapped in the back of my truck and snow coming sideways like the world had lost patience. I should have turned around. Instead, I told myself I was 10 minutes away. That is how most disasters begin, by the way, with a grown man saying, "It's only 10 minutes." Marianne opened the door before I knocked. Warm light spilled around her, golden against the blue-white storm. She wore dark jeans, a cream sweater, and reading glasses perched on her head, like she had been interrupted mid-thought. "You made it," she said, and relief crossed her face before she covered it with sarcasm. "Congratulations. You are officially more determined than intelligent. I get that on Yelp sometimes." She stepped aside. "Bring your foolish self in before you freeze to my porch." Inside, the house smelled like wood smoke, rosemary, and old books. The kind of smell that makes a man suddenly aware of how lonely his own place is. I hauled the chest in, boots squeaking on the mat, shoulders burning from the cold. Marianne brushed snow off my coat with quick, practical swipes. "You're soaked," she said. "I'm fine. You're blue. Matches the season." She gave me a look over her glasses. "Miles." Just my name. That was all. Somehow it worked better than an argument. I let her take my coat. The cedar chest looked beautiful in the corner by the fireplace, its grain glowing under the lamplight. Marianne knelt beside it and ran her fingers over the restored lid with a tenderness that made me look away for a second. "My mother kept letters in. Here," she said quietly. "Recipes, photographs, a ridiculous amount of ribbon. I fixed the hinge, reinforced the bottom, but I left the scratches inside." She glanced up. "Why?" "Because they belonged to it." Her expression softened. "You always did understand broken things without trying to erase them." That landed somewhere I wasn't expecting. Outside, the wind shoved hard against the windows. I cleared my throat. I should head back before it gets worse. Marianne stood and crossed to the front window. For a moment, neither of us spoke. My truck was already half buried. The road beyond the pines had vanished completely. Then my phone buzzed with an emergency alert. Road closures in effect. Avoid all travel. Marianne looked at my screen, then at me. You're not going anywhere. I can wait an hour. Miles, the plow won't come up this road until morning. I laughed once because that seemed easier than admitting my stomach had tightened. So what, I sleep in the truck? Her eyebrow lifted. Don't be dramatic. I have a guest room. That should have been simple, a normal favor, a safe arrangement. Two adults waiting out bad weather in a house with a fireplace and too much history. But then the power flickered. The lamps dimmed, and Marianne reached for my wrist without thinking. Her fingers were warm. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds longer than it needed to. We both noticed. She let go first, but not quickly enough to pretend nothing had happened. Well, she said, voice lighter than her eyes, if we're trapped, I suppose I should feed you. I refuse to have your death on my conscience after you brought me excellent craftsmanship. Only excellent? Don't push your luck. I followed her into the kitchen where she set me to chopping carrots while she stirred a pot of soup like she had commanded kitchens, classrooms, and weak men for decades. We moved around each other carefully at first, but the room was small, and the storm made the windows rattle, and after the third accidental brush of shoulders, Marianne gave me a dry smile. If you apologize one more time for existing in my kitchen, I'm putting you outside. I was raised polite. You were raised nervous. I looked at her. She looked back. The teasing faded into something quieter. You got quieter after Jenna, she said. I set the knife down. Most people get quieter after they find out they were someone's almost. Marianne's face changed, not pity, recognition. She cared about you, she said. I know, but not enough to stay. I nodded once. Her hand came to rest over mine on the counter. Not motherly, not casual. A woman's hand over a man's, steady and deliberate. You deserve to be chosen without someone keeping one eye on the exit, she said. The wind howled hard enough to shake the house. I should have stepped back. Instead, I turned my hand under hers. Her breath caught so softly I might have imagined it, except her fingers tightened around mine. For a long moment, we stood in that warm kitchen with soup simmering, snow sealing us off from the rest of the world, and every rule we had been relying on started to feel thinner than paper. Then the lights went out. Marianne made a small sound of surprise and stepped toward me in the dark. I caught her by the waist before she stumbled, and suddenly she was close enough that I could feel the rise and fall of her breathing. Are you all right? I asked. No, she whispered. But she didn't move away. When the emergency lantern clicked on from the hallway, it threw a soft amber glow across her face. Her eyes lifted to mine, searching, warning, wanting. Miles, she said, and this time my name sounded nothing like a correction. It sounded like permission. I don't know who moved first. I only know that when I kissed Marianne Whitaker, she kissed me back like she had been holding her breath for years. And when we finally broke apart, she touched her fingers to her mouth, looked toward the dark window where the snow kept falling, and said the sentence that changed everything. Don't tell my daughter what happened between us tonight. I should have said, of course. That would have been the simple answer, the decent answer. The answer a man gives when he has just kissed his ex-girlfriend's mother in a power outage during a blizzard. Instead, I said, is that what you want? Marianne stared at me. The lantern painted her in amber and shadow, softening the sharp intelligence of her face, but not hiding the tremble in her hand when she lowered it from her lips. What kind of question is that? She asked. The kind I should have asked before I kissed you. You didn't kiss me alone. No, I said quietly. I didn't. Her eyes dropped to my mouth, and that small, honest glance did more damage to my self-control than the kiss itself. She wanted me, not theoretically, not as an accident, not as some wine and snowstorm mistake she could blame on weather. She wanted me, and she hated that I could see it. Marianne stepped back, smoothing her sweater like she could press herself into composure. This is complicated. That's one word for it. Jenna is my daughter. I remember. Her gaze flicked up. Don't be glib. I'm not. I shoved a hand through my hair. I'm trying not to say the wrong thing. And what would the wrong thing be? That I've thought about you. The silence after that was not empty. It was full of the storm, the dark house, the soup cooling on the stove, and Marianne's suddenly unsteady breath. She looked at me as if I had placed something fragile and dangerous between us. When? She asked. I huffed a humorless laugh. You want a calendar? I want honesty. So I gave it to her. After Jenna and I ended. Not before. I never crossed that line in my head when I was with her. I looked away, then forced myself back. But afterward, when you'd call about a referral or stop by the shop, I noticed things I had no business noticing. Her mouth curved faintly. Such as? Of all the responses, I hadn't expected mischief. I blinked. You're going to make me say it? I'm 52, Miles. I've earned the right to hear a man be specific. That knocked a laugh out of me, and some of the tension cracked. All right, I said. Your voice. The way you make an insult sound like a compliment if a person isn't paying attention. Your hands when you talk about art. The fact that you always smell like bergamot and vanilla. Her expression shifted, warmed. And, I added because apparently I had lost my mind entirely, your legs in those black boots. Marianne's laugh was startled, low and real. She covered her face for half a second, then dropped her hand. Well, she said, that was specific. You asked. I did. The lantern hummed softly. Her smile faded, but not into regret, into something more vulnerable. I noticed you too, she said. My chest tightened. You don't have to. I'm not being generous. She folded her arms, then unfolded them immediately, as if her body couldn't decide whether to defend itself or reach for me. You were kind to my daughter even when she was leaving you. You listened when I spoke. You fixed my porch railing without charging me because you said it was annoying your sense of balance. It was crooked. It was barely crooked. Her eyes softened. And you always looked at me like I was a woman, not a relic with a grown child. The words hit hard. Marianne. She shook her head once. No, let me have the humiliation properly. That isn't humiliation. It feels dangerously close. I crossed the small space between us, slow enough that she could stop me. She didn't. When I reached her, I didn't kiss her. I took her hand. You are the least relic-like person I've ever met. Her lips twitched. That may be the ugliest compliment ever given. I work with lumber. My poetry is limited. There it is, she said softly. That ridiculous steadiness. I rubbed my thumb over her knuckles. Does it scare you? Yes. Me too. That seemed to settle something in her. She leaned closer, just enough for her forehead to touch my chest. Not dramatic, not desperate, just tired of holding herself alone. I rested my chin lightly over her hair. For a few minutes we stood like that while the blizzard swallowed the world. Then her stomach growled. I felt it before I heard it. She stiffened. If you mention that, I'll deny you blankets. I heard nothing. You're smiling. It's dark. The lantern is on. I'm smiling respectfully. She pushed at my chest, but she was laughing, and when we went back to the stove, the room felt changed. Still complicated. Still forbidden around the edges, but warmer, like we had stepped into a truth neither of us knew what to do with yet. We ate soup at the kitchen island by lantern light. Marianne found a bottle of red wine and poured half glasses for circulation, not courage, though her eyes dared me to argue. It became almost date-like, which should have made me run. Instead, I found myself telling her about my father teaching me to plane wood by hand, about the first table I'd sold, about how quiet my house felt since the breakup. She told me about studying in Florence at 21, getting pregnant at 28, the divorce she rarely mentioned, and how people assumed she was content because she was competent. I am tired, she admitted, turning her wine glass by the stem, of being admired for needing so little. I looked at her in the lantern glow, at the silver in her hair, the slope of her bare wrist. the guarded softness she kept letting me glimpse. You shouldn't have to need quietly. Her eyes shone. She looked away fast, but I saw. After dinner, we moved to the living room, where the fireplace had burned down to coals. I added logs while Marianne wrapped herself in a blanket and accused me of arranging them with erotic precision. I nearly dropped one. She smiled into her wine. Too much? Not enough warning. I thought younger men liked confidence. Younger men? I turned. Is that what I am? Her gaze traveled over me with such deliberate slowness my skin heated. In certain lighting. I went to her because not going to her had become impossible. She tilted her face up as I bent down, but just before our mouths met, she whispered, "This doesn't become a secret because I'm ashamed of you." I stopped. Her fingers curled into my shirt. It becomes a secret because I don't know how to be a mother and a woman in the same breath without hurting someone. That was the most honest thing either of us had said. I knelt in front of her chair. Then tonight, just be Marianne. Her eyes closed. When she opened them, she touched my jaw. And you? Who will you be? A man who chooses you because he wants to. Not because of the storm. Not because of Jenna. Because of you. She searched my face, and whatever she found there made her pull me up to her. The second kiss was slower. Less surprise. More decision. Her mouth was warm from wine, her hand sliding to the back of my neck, her breath catching when I eased onto the couch beside her and drew her close. The blanket slipped around both of us. Outside, ice struck the windows. Inside, Marianne kissed me like she was arguing with every year she'd spent denying herself. When we parted, she kept her hand over my heart. Your trouble, Miles Barrett. I delivered furniture. You delivered a midlife crisis. Do you want me to apologize? She considered me, mouth swollen, eyes bright. No, she said. I want you to stay right here. So I did. I held her in front of the fire until the house grew colder and the storm softened to a steady hiss. We didn't talk about morning. We didn't talk about Jenna. Then, from the kitchen, my phone buzzed against the counter. Once. Twice. Marianne lifted her head from my shoulder. Probably weather, I said. But when I went to check, the screen showed a name I hadn't seen in months. Jenna Whitaker. And beneath it, a message. Hey. Mom isn't answering. Are you still at her place? I stared at Jenna's message until the screen dimmed. Marianne came up behind me quietly, blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She didn't touch me. Somehow that made me feel the loss of her warmth more sharply. What does it say? She asked. I handed her the phone. Her face changed in the lantern light, not with panic exactly, with motherhood. The softness vanished behind responsibility so quickly I understood what she'd meant earlier. How hard it was to be a woman when the world kept handing her other roles first. She called me twice, Marianne said, checking her own phone on the counter. No service. Yours must have caught a bar. What do you want me to say? She looked at me. There it was again, the question beneath the question. Not what should we say. What do you want me to be to you when someone else is watching? Marianne set my phone down like it was breakable. Tell her the truth. My pulse kicked. The whole truth? A flicker of humor crossed her mouth, tired but real. Perhaps not the part where I accused you of stacking firewood seductively. Erotic precision, I believe. Don't quote me while I'm trying to be dignified. I smiled despite everything. Then her expression sobered. Tell her you delivered the chest and got stuck because of the road closure. Tell her I'm safe, that's all. That's not a lie. No, but it isn't all of it. No, she said again. I typed slowly. At your mom's. Roads closed before I could leave. Power's out, but she's safe. We're fine. I hesitated over the last two words. We're fine. They looked harmless. They felt intimate. Jenna replied within a minute. Thank God. I was worried. She wasn't answering. Can you make sure she has wood in the house? She forgets to bring enough in. Marianne read it over my shoulder and made an offended sound. I do not forget. I choose not to overexert myself before absolutely necessary. I typed, she has wood. Marianne leaned closer. Don't make me sound helpless. I added, she is supervising me aggressively. Jenna sent back a laughing emoji. That little yellow face somehow felt worse than anger. Then another message appeared. Thanks, Miles. Seriously, I'm glad you're there. Marianne went still. So did I. It was a simple sentence from a daughter relieved her mother wasn't alone in a storm. It should have been nothing more. But my hand remembered Marianne's waist. My mouth remembered hers. My heart, reckless idiot that it was, heard the words differently. I'm glad you're there. Marianne stepped away first. I should go upstairs, she said. The sudden distance in her voice chilled the room more than the dead furnace. Why? Because this is exactly why we shouldn't. She gestured between us, helplessly elegant, even in distress. Whatever this is, I set the phone down. This is not nothing. I know that. Do you? Her eyes flashed. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm asking you not to disappear behind Jenna before I even get a say. That stopped her. The fire snapped behind us. The storm pressed its white palms to the windows. A say? She repeated. Yes. My voice came out rougher than I intended. I was with Jenna. I loved her once, but I'm not hers. I haven't been hers for a long time. Marianne hugged the blanket tighter. And I am her mother. I know. You say that like it's a detail. No, I say it like it's a fact we have to face, not a prison sentence. Her mouth trembled before she steadied it. You make it sound simple because you're not the one who will lose her daughter. That took the anger out of me. I crossed the kitchen but stopped before touching her. I don't want you to lose anything because of me. Then walk away. The words landed between us. Her chin lifted as if she were daring me to obey. Maybe some better man would have. Maybe some cleaner, nobler version of me would have picked up a blanket, gone to the guest room, and let morning bury the whole night under snow and silence. But I looked at Marianne, at this woman who had spent years being sensible, beautiful, untouchable Marianne, and I couldn't pretend I wanted distance. No, I said. Her breath caught. I stepped closer. Not because I don't care about the risk, because I do. But you don't get to kiss me like that, look at me like this, and then decide by yourself that I'm leaving. Her eyes shone in the lantern glow. You're very inconvenient. I've been called worse. I'm serious, Miles. So am I. She looked down. I am afraid she'll think I took something from her. You didn't. She may not see it that way. Then we'll be honest when it's time. Her laugh broke softly. When it's time. Listen to you. Like there's a plan. There can be. What plan? I shrugged. Survive the storm, eat more soup, argue about blankets. In the morning, if you still want me gone, I'll go, but if you don't. I swallowed. Then we talk about what happens next. Marianne searched my face for the escape hatch. I didn't give her one. Finally, she whispered, And tonight? Tonight, I stay on the couch unless you ask me not to. Her eyes dropped to my mouth again, and that same sweet, impossible heat returned to the room. You're making it very difficult to be wise, she said. Good. That was not a compliment. I took it as one. For a second, she tried not to smile, failed. Then she closed the space between us and pressed her forehead to my sternum. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding and wrapped my arms around her. She fit against me differently than anyone ever had. Not like someone trying to be smaller, but like someone testing whether she was allowed to rest her full weight. I don't want to be a secret, I said into her hair. Her fingers tightened in my shirt. I don't either, she whispered, but I may need a little courage before daylight. I tipped her chin up. Borrow mine. Marianne's eyes softened. You have too much for a man who drove into a blizzard. That wasn't courage. That was poor judgment. There's a difference. Usually paperwork. She laughed, and I kissed her then, because laughter on her mouth was becoming my favorite thing. This kiss was gentler than the others. No surprise, no argument. Just her hand sliding under my sweater to the warmth of my back, my palm at the curve of her cheek, both of us choosing not to run for one more minute. When she pulled away, she didn't step back. Come sit with me, she said. So we returned to the couch. She tucked herself against my side, legs curled beneath her, and I drew the blanket over both of us. The firelight moved over her face. Without the performance of composure, she looked younger and older at once, unguarded, weary, alive. "Tell me something true," she said. "About what?" "You." I thought about easy answers, favorite songs, childhood injuries, sawdust. Then I gave her the real thing. I was relieved when Jenna left. Marianne didn't move. I stared at the fire. Not at first. At first I was hurt, embarrassed, angry in a quiet way, but a month later I woke up and realized I didn't miss who I was with her. I missed being wanted. That made me feel guilty. Her hand found mine under the blanket. "You don't have to feel guilty for outgrowing a heartbreak," she said. I looked at her. "Your turn." She inhaled slowly. "I have spent most of my adult life being loved for what I provide," she said. "Calm, advice, taste, stability. A guest room in a storm." Her thumb brushed my knuckle. "Tonight, when you looked at me, I didn't feel useful. I felt desired." "You are desired." Her eyes closed at the words like they touched skin. When she opened them again, she kissed me once, soft and lingering. Then she rested her head against my shoulder. For a while there was no daughter, no past, no mourning. Just Marianne's hand in mine and the storm losing strength beyond the glass. I was nearly asleep when my phone buzzed again. This time, the message wasn't from Jenna. It was from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but you need to leave Marianne Whitaker's house before sunrise." I read the message 3 times. "You don't know me, but you need to leave Marianne Whitaker's house before sunrise." Marianne felt me go still beneath her. "What is it?" she murmured. I could have lied. I almost did, out of some stupid instinct to shield her from one more complication. But we had just spent half the night promising honesty and pieces. I wasn't going to start choosing for her now. I handed her the phone. Her face tightened, then went oddly blank. "You know who sent it," I said. "I have a guess." "That's not comforting." She sat up, drawing the blanket around herself like armor. "It's probably Graham." "Your ex-husband." "My ex-husband has a flair for drama and poor boundaries." I looked toward the dark windows. "Does he know I'm here?" "Jenna may have mentioned it. They still talk sometimes." Marianne rubbed her forehead. "Or he saw your truck when he drove by earlier." My head snapped toward her. "He drove by?" "At dusk, before the worst of the storm. I thought it was a plow at first, but the headlights slowed near the drive." She tried for casual and missed. "Graham owns a place 2 roads over." The old protective part of me rose fast, hot and useless. "Has he threatened you before?" "No, not like that." She looked at the phone again. "He prefers insinuation. Little comments about my choices, my age, who I should or shouldn't invite into my life. Sounds charming. I married him at 27. My standards have since improved." Even now she made me smile. Then she reached for my hand. "Don't look like that." "Like what?" "Like you're measuring the distance to the door." "I'm not leaving." "I know." Her thumb moved over my palm, deliberate and calming. "That's what worries me." The storm had quieted, but the house still felt sealed away from everything ordinary. Somewhere in the walls, old pipes ticked. The fire had burned low again. I wanted to pace. I wanted to call the number. I wanted to do something with the sharp edge under my ribs. Instead, I looked at the woman beside me and asked, "What do you want?" Marianne blinked, as if nobody ever asked her that when trouble arrived. "I want," she said slowly, "not to let Graham decide what this night means." That answer did something to me. "Then he doesn't." Her eyes lifted to mine. I put my phone face down on the coffee table and slid closer. "He can text. Jenna can worry. Morning can be messy, but right now I'm here because you asked me to stay." "I did. And I want to stay." Her breath trembled. Not fear this time, want. Marianne touched my cheek, her fingers cool from leaving the blanket. "You keep saying things like that, Miles Barrett, and I'm going to start believing you're dangerous." "I'm a carpenter stranded in damp socks." Desire has survived worse costumes. I laughed and the sound loosened the room. She smiled, then leaned in and kissed the corner of my mouth. Not urgent, not stolen. A choice made in defiance of every voice outside the house telling her she was too old, too responsible, too motherly, too late. I turned into her, and the kiss deepened. Her hand slid into my hair. Mine settled at her waist over the blanket. The whole world narrowed to the warmth of her mouth and the small sound she made when I drew her closer. We kissed until the unease from the message blurred at the edges, until my anger had nowhere to go but tenderness. When we parted, she rested her forehead against mine. "I don't want tonight to be only tonight," she whispered. My chest went tight. There it was. The step neither of us could blame on snow or wine or power outages. "Neither do I." She pulled back just enough to see my face. "Even if it's difficult?" "Especially then. That's not sensible." "I'm beginning to suspect sensible has been overpraised." Her laugh came out wet. "I have a lecture on Renaissance patronage that would disagree." "I'll argue with your lecture." "You'd lose." "Probably. I'd enjoy the view." She gave me that look again, the one that made me feel both caught and invited. "You really are trouble." "No," I said, brushing my thumb along her jaw. "I'm interested. There's a difference." The softness in her face nearly undid me. We didn't sleep much after that, but we did not let Graham have the night. We made tea on the gas burner. We found shortbread in a tin Marianne claimed was for guests with better manners. We sat on the rug in front of the fire like teenagers and adults at once, shoulders touching, knees bumping, talking in low voices, while the last of the storm moved over the lake. At some point, she told me Graham had never liked being left, even years after the divorce. Not because he loved her, she said, but because she had stopped orbiting him. At first, I thought freedom would feel like triumph, she admitted. Mostly it felt like paperwork in a quiet house. I know the quiet house part. "Yes," she said, looking at me. "I think you do." Our hands found each other again. Near 4 in the morning, the power returned with a hum and a sudden flash of lamps. We both squinted like criminals caught by daylight. Marianne's hair was mussed from my fingers. Her sweater had slipped off one shoulder. She looked beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with polish. "I should probably look less ravished before breakfast," she said. I choked on my tea. She arched a brow. "Too strong. After erotic precision, I should have been prepared. I contain multitudes." "That you do." Her smile faded to something tender. "Come upstairs." The words struck hard, but she must have seen my expression because she squeezed my hand. "To the guest room, Miles. You need dry clothes. I have an old sweatshirt from a college fundraiser that will damage your dignity less than hypothermia." "Ah. Did you think I was propositioning you?" "I am choosing not to answer on legal grounds." She laughed all the way up the stairs. The guest room was small, with quilts folded at the foot of the bed and a view of black pines heavy with snow. Marianne handed me towels and the promised sweatshirt, then lingered in the doorway. Neither of us moved. The new light made everything more real, not safer, just clearer. She stepped inside and smoothed a wrinkle from the sleeve of my thermal shirt. It was an unnecessary touch, which made it perfect. "When morning comes," she said, "I may panic. I'll be around. I may say something overly composed and foolish. I'll translate." Her mouth curved. "Into what?" "Miles, I'm terrified. Please kiss me." "That is an arrogant translation." "Is it wrong?" She studied me. Then, very deliberately, she took my face in both hands and kissed me. It wasn't a storm kiss. It wasn't a secret kiss. It was quiet, awake, almost brave. "No," she whispered against my mouth. "It isn't wrong." For the first time all night, I let myself believe we might make it past sunrise. Then a car door slammed outside. Marianne stiffened. We crossed to the window together. Dawn had begun to gray the sky. At the end of the driveway, beside my half-buried truck, stood a dark SUV. A man in a wool coat stepped out, phone in hand. Marianne exhaled sharply. "Graham," she said. Behind him, another car eased to a stop on the road. Jenna got out, wrapped in a red parka, staring at my truck, and then at her mother's bedroom window. Marianne did not move for 3 full seconds. Then she stepped away from the window, squared her shoulders, and said, "I am going to put on lipstick." I stared at her. "That's your battle plan?" "It has served women better than most governments." Downstairs, Graham knocked hard enough to rattle the front door. Marianne walked to the mirror, smoothed her hair with her fingers, and applied a dark berry lipstick with a hand that barely shook. I should have been worried about Graham, about Jenna, about the fact that I was in a guest room wearing my ex-girlfriend's mother's university sweatshirt. Instead, watching Marianne choose herself in that mirror nearly brought me to my knees. When she turned, I said, "I'm with you." Her eyes softened. "I know." "No, I mean it. Not behind you, not in front of you. With you." She crossed the room and took my hand. "Then let's go ruin everyone's morning." Graham was already talking when Marianne opened the door. "Really, Marianne? You ignore my calls, leave your phone dead, and I have to hear from Jenna that your former handyman spent the night?" "Woodworker," I said. Graham's gaze cut to me. He was tall, silver-haired, expensive-looking in a way that made even Snow seem underdressed around him. Jenna stood a few feet behind him, cheeks pink from cold, eyes moving from me to her mother. "Mom?" That one word hurt Marianne more than Graham's entire performance. She opened the door wider. "Come in, both of you. You're letting the heat out." We gathered in the living room like a family portrait painted by someone with a grudge. Graham near the fireplace, Jenna by the cedar chest, Marianne beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel her decision. Graham looked at my borrowed sweatshirt and smiled thinly. "Cozy." Marianne's voice was calm. "Miles delivered the chest yesterday. The roads closed before he could leave. He stayed in the guest room." That was true. It just wasn't the whole shape of the truth. Jenna looked relieved for half a breath, then uncertain again. She knew her mother too well. Or maybe she knew me. "And that's all?" she asked. The room went silent. Marianne turned to me. There it was. The moment she could still choose the easier lie. I would have let her. I hated that I would have, but I would have. Instead, she reached for my hand in front of both of them. Jenna's face went still. Graham laughed once. "Oh, that is rich." "Be quiet, Graham," Marianne said. He blinked, offended by the lack of tremor. Marianne kept her hand in mine. "Something did happen last night. Not because of the storm, not because anyone was confused. Miles and I kissed." Jenna's eyes filled instantly and my stomach twisted. "Jenna," I said, "I'm sorry you're finding out like this." She looked at me as if she didn't know where to put the pain. "Were you two... Was this going on when we were together?" "No," Marianne said sharply. Never," I said. "I swear to you." Jenna looked between us. "But you thought about it?" "I could have protected myself. I didn't." "After we ended," I said. "Not before." Her laugh was small and wounded. "That's supposed to help?" "No," I said. "It's just the truth." Graham folded his arms. "Jenna, sweetheart, you see? This is exactly the kind of selfish—" "I said be quiet," Marianne snapped. The whole room froze. Marianne faced him fully. "You came here because you wanted to catch me ashamed. You wanted Jenna shocked, Miles guilty, and me back in whatever box makes you comfortable. But my life is not yours to manage." Graham's jaw tightened. I was concerned. "You were entertained." Jenna wiped at her cheek. "Dad, did you send Miles that creepy text?" His silence answered. Marianne let out a bitter little laugh. "Of course." Jenna turned on him. "You dragged me out here in a storm because you wanted a scene? I wanted you to know what your mother was doing. My mother is an adult." The words surprised all of us, Jenna included. She looked at Marianne then, and the hurt returned, softer, less sharp. "I don't know how to feel." Marianne released my hand and went to her daughter. She stopped short of touching her. "I know," she said. "And I am sorry. Not for caring about him. I won't lie to you that way. But I am sorry this hurts." Jenna's eyes flicked to me. "Did you love me?" "Yes." "Do you love her?" Marianne inhaled. My answer came before fear could edit it. "I'm beginning to." Marianne turned toward me, lips parted, eyes bright with shock. It was too soon. It was reckless. It was absolutely true. Jenna closed her eyes. A tear slipped down. Wow, okay, that is a lot. I know, I said. Graham scoffed. This is absurd. Jenna looked at him. Dad, go wait in the car. Jenna, now. For once, Graham recognized he had lost the room. He left with a hard slam of the door. After he was gone, the quiet felt raw but cleaner. Jenna sat on the arm of the couch, staring at the cedar chest. I don't want details. You will receive none, Marianne said. Despite herself, Jenna gave a broken little laugh. Then she looked at me. You can't be casual with her. I'm not. I mean it. She pretends she's made of marble, but she's not. I know. Marianne's voice softened. Darling. Jenna stood. I'm angry. I'm weirded out. I may remain weirded out for the foreseeable future. That's fair, I said. But, she swallowed. You were good to me, Miles. And Mom deserves someone who looks at her like she's not invisible. Marianne covered her mouth. Jenna pointed at us both. I am not blessing this. I am simply not setting the house on fire. I'll take it, Marianne whispered. It took time after that. Not a day. Not one brave conversation by the fireplace. Time. Jenna didn't speak to either of us for 2 weeks except in practical texts. Graham sent one long, pompous email that Marianne deleted after reading only the first sentence aloud in a dramatic British accent. Our first actual date happened 3 Fridays after the storm. I picked Marianne up at her front door with tulips, and she said, If you call this courting, I expect effort. So I took her to a tiny Italian place with fogged windows, and she wore the black boots. We talked for 3 hours. In the parking lot, she kissed me under a street lamp and said, I'm still frightened. I said, me too. She smiled. Good. Then neither of us is being stupid alone. By spring, Jenna agreed to have coffee with us. It was awkward. Then less awkward. Then, one afternoon, she called Marianne and asked, very carefully, Is Miles making you happy? Marianne looked across my workshop where I was sanding a tabletop and answered, Yes. I pretended not to hear. She knew I heard. A year after that night, I built Marianne a porch swing from white oak and hung it at the lake house. The cedar chest sat inside by the fireplace, full of old letters and new ones. Jenna came up for dinner sometimes. She still made faces when I kissed her mother's cheek, but she also brought wine and once told me, Don't mess this up, Barrett. I didn't plan to. On the first snowfall of the next winter, Marianne and I sat on that swing wrapped in the same blanket from the storm. The lake was dark, the porch light gold, the world going quiet around us again. She leaned into my side and said, You know, you still never told my daughter exactly what happened that night. I kissed her silver-threaded hair. No. Her hand found mine under the blanket. Good, she said. Some stories belong first to the people brave enough to live them. And as the snow began to fall, she turned her face up to mine. Not hidden, not ashamed, not anyone's secret. And kissed me like coming home. What would you have done if you got stranded in a snowstorm with your ex's mother and she asked you not to tell her daughter what happened between you? Have you ever experienced something even remotely like that? Tell your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.